All right, I'm not going to bring in Pete Zaborszky. He's the founder of ProPrivacy. Pete, appreciate your time today here on CTV News Channel.
Thank you.
All right, so we now know, and I'm correcting myself here, 18 now consecutive weeks of protests that are happening. But one of the biggest moves that we have seen by the government is this ban on face masks. Talk to us a little bit more about that and the bigger picture in terms of what this means, in terms of what the government's purpose is behind it, but what it also means for protesters.
Well, I think there's two main reasons for it. And the first one is the obvious one, that a lot of the frontline protesters are wearing gas masks to reduce the effects of tear gas, and it's going to have an effect on that if they comply. But I think the second reason is the really sinister and kind of future dystopian version, which is that we know that China is a world leader in facial recognition technology, and it's very, very likely that the main reason for this ban is that they want to use this technology to potentially identify protesters and maybe now, maybe in the future, prosecute them.
How concerning is this? Because we know that it has been said that if you defy the law, then you could be fined a certain amount of money, but also put in jail for about a year.
Well, I think it's early days, and we've seen that maybe a lot of people aren't complying with the law. So we'll see how the Hong Kong government responds. But I think it's very, very worrying for the privacy of the protesters.
And as you say, I mean, they haven't abided by the law. Huge protests now we're seeing. We're showing footage from last night of what the devastation has been with even more protesters coming into the streets. What is your take then on the strategy by the government to do this, but also the strategy on the demonstrators to say we're not backing down?
Well, I think so far they haven't backed down, but it's the technology now, I think, is so good. Just 6 days ago, probably not coincidentally, the news came out that China now has a 500 megapixel camera that can identify in HD anyone in a stadium, and they can pick out a single person within seconds. So knowing that, and on the other side, knowing that they've now banned facial coverings, it's all, if you put it together, it's very, very worrying that potentially the Hong Kong government can identify people very, very quickly. And I mean, who knows what they're passing on to the Chinese authorities? That's another big question that no one really knows the answer to.
Right. And what about, when we're talking about, rights of the individual, could they be infringing on rights by using this technology?
Well, it really depends on the legislation, because Hong Kong's in this weird situation for the next few decades, where they're kind of half in China and half out. But I think we can see that this legislation was brought in by the executive very, very quickly. So it wasn't really brought into place democratically. So already I think it's tilting a lot more towards authoritarian China than a more democratic, proper, legislatively created law.
A law that hasn't been used for over 50 years, we understand, and as you say, is sort of brought in very, very quickly, not by the democratic process. Where do you see things going from this stage? Because I think it's clear to say demonstrators aren't going to back down, and perhaps the government maybe is fearing that they're losing control over all of this.
That very, very difficult question, but I think it's clear that the protesters are very, very determined, and they're obviously with this face mask ban, they're not really complying with it. So they're definitely very, very determined to carry on.
Well, we'll continue to follow this story as it develops, perhaps further into weeks. Peter Zaborszky, thank you very much for your time, founder of ProPrivacy. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.